Okay, folks, here we go. We're moving on to the second half of section 1-2. We're now going to be discussing how do we evaluate algebraic expressions. Remember from yesterday, we talked about simply evaluating numerical expressions using the order of operations. We're going to do something very similar today, except instead of having the numbers already there, we're going to have algebraic expressions. And if you recall from the previous couple days, algebraic expressions are expressions that have variables and numbers and operations in them. So we're still going to go through and do that part. We're going to keep the same kind of thought process of the GEMDAS order of operations as we approach this, but we have a little step first we have to deal with. And so in order to do that, I want to talk about something called just inequality. And now when you see the word equals, anytime you see equals in math, it's a really powerful property. Equals means that they're interchangeable. That means if you see, for example, if you see something like x is equal to 7, well, if x equals 7, that means that 7 is also equal to x. And wherever I see those two numbers, I can replace them with that. So using those is a very powerful property, that idea of equality. So when we're dealing with algebraic expressions especially, if you know the value of a variable, for example, if you know that x is equal to 7, that means wherever I see an x, I can replace it with a 7. Now, a couple things to realize as you do that. Parentheses are very much your friend. So when we go through that, a little sidebar here to this, let me move this down a little bit really quick. But when you're dealing with parentheses, it's very important because depending on the operation, you can have some stuff that is wrong. It doesn't give you the right answer. So, for example, one of my favorite examples to use is the idea of this. If I have -4 squared and I have -4 squared. Now, they both look very similar, but one is using parentheses and one is doing not. So as they do is they cause some similar things to happen, but also some different things to happen as well. On this left side, without the parentheses, what this really is saying is the opposite of 4 squared. So that means I'm going to take the exponent and do this part first, and then apply the negative. What it's really saying, negatives just come from basically doing -1 times 4 squared. That's what that says. Well, taking that into consideration with our order of operations, we have to do the exponent part first. So we're going to do this first, which I come back. That goes to -1 times 16. And then I do the multiplication. That gives me -16. So this is the same thing as that. Now the difference here is where the parentheses are. It's still the same idea. You have a negative number, so this really is -1 times 4, and then all of it squared. Okay, notice how everything stayed inside parentheses there. Well, order of operations says before I do the exponent, I do the multiplication inside parentheses first. So I go back to that. -1 times 4 is -4, and then squared. Well, -4 squared, remember, when you square something, it's the same thing as -4 times -4. And then we know from previous experience that when you multiply two negative numbers together, you get a positive result. So this becomes positive 16. And that is the same as that. So if you look, very subtle differences with parentheses. So one gives you a positive and one gives you a negative. So as we're evaluating these expressions, one of the big things I want you guys to do is make sure that you are, and this is a big warning note, is use parentheses whenever substituting for a variable. So if we're working with a variable and we're substituting a value in, you need to make sure you're using parentheses so we get the correct answer there. Okay, so let's actually go through and do an example of this now and see how it all works for us. Okay, so what we have is, I'm going to put you down. Oh, it's not showing up my answer. There it goes. So what we have is this problem. Evaluate the expression a squared plus a squared times the quantity 3b plus 5 divided by c. So this is what we're evaluating. If you notice there, you see an a, you see a b, and you see a c. So what I'm looking for are those values. And if you look over here on the right, we see a is equal to, b is equal to, and c is equal to. That means that wherever I see a, I can replace it with 2. Wherever I see b, I can replace it with 6, and wherever I see c, I can replace it with 4. So we're going to go to my problem here and just do that exactly. So let's start, just kind of work our way. We have a squared. So I see, hey, there's an a. So we're going to replace a with 2. So parenthesis, 2, that replaced a, and then it had a squared on it. And notice that the squared is on the outside of the parentheses. It's very important. Then I have a bigger parenthesis there. And a 3. Well, right next to the 3, I have a b. I know the value of b. The value of b is 6. So I'll replace b with 6 now. Then I have a plus. That doesn't change. 5 is not a variable, so 5 stays put. Then I have a parenthesis. Then I have a division sign. And then I have a c at the very end, but we know that c is 4. So I can go ahead and plug those values right in and do it. Now we have a problem like you guys worked on yesterday, where you have just a numerical expression. We can follow our standard order of operations. So let's do that. Remember, order of operations, review, was GEMDAS, right? Grouping symbols. Then we had exponents. Then we have multiplication or division from left to right. Then we had addition or subtraction, also from left to right. So let's go through and do that. First of all, we ask ourselves, do we have grouping symbols? Yep, we have it as a 2. We have the big one and the small one. The only one that can simplify is this stuff first. So we're going to start with the stuff on the inside. Okay? We have inside, we have multiplication and addition. So we know that we do multiplication first. So we're going to do you guys first. So as I do that, I'm going to keep 2 squared here with the parentheses. 3 times 6 is 18. And I have plus 5 quantity divided by 4. Okay, we can keep going inside still. So now I'm going to do the 18 until I'm completely simplified. 2 squared, and 18 plus 5 is 13, or I'm sorry, 23, my goodness. And then divided by 4. Okay. So then I have all my, parentheses, I have all my insides taken care of. Now I move down. Next, so grouping, done. Exponents are next. I do have an exponent. In the front is 2 squared. So you are next. 2 squared is 2 times 2. That's 4. Then I have this 23 here. And I had divided by 4. Okay, so exponents are taken care of. Next we look, multiplication or division. From left to right, again, that's the important thing. Because I have both multiplication and division in my problem, I'm going to then go and do that. So if I look from left to right, multiplication comes first. So I need to do 4 times 23 first. 4 times 23 is going to give me a total of 92. And then divide that by 4. Well, my last result is to do division. So we get a total of 23. So the value of my problem, where it says evaluate each expression, the answer is 23. Okay? So that's what we're looking for as we go through these problems, trying to figure out what exactly we have to work with. Plug your numbers in, and then go from there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put another problem on the screen. I'd like you to try it yourself, and then I'll walk through the problem. So here's the second problem I want you to do, this guy. So at this point, I'd like you to pause the video, try it out on your own, and then start it again and see if our explanations come into the same result. Okay, so here's our solution. If you notice, I have a D, I have an F, and I have a G. I need those values. So over here, I have D, I have F, and I have G. So we're going to substitute those in for the appropriate variables in the problem, and then follow our order of operations. So let's go ahead and do that. So 5 is not a variable, but I have a D right there. We know that D is 4, so I'm going to put a 4 there instead. Then I have a plus and a parenthesis. Notice everything stays the same. 6 is there. I have a variable of F, So f becomes 3 because that's what they said it was equal to. Then a minus, and there's a g. Well, I know that g is 12, so I plug that in, and I go from there. Okay. And again, order of operations. Okay, grouping symbols first. I have them. So inside the grouping symbol, I'm going to look, and I'm going to do 6 times 3 first because that comes before subtraction. So as I move down, 5 times 4 plus 6 times 3 is 18 minus the 12. Okay. Keep on moving down inside. I'm going to do the parentheses next. So 5 times 4 plus 18 minus 12 is 6. So that's taken care of. Now my next part, I look, I have multiplication and addition. I know multiplication goes first, so 5 times 4 is 20. I'm going to go ahead and add 6 to that, and my final result will be 26. So hopefully you had that as a solution. If you didn't, look back in the work that I just put up there and see where your problem moved away from what I had. Okay? And that way you can tell and see where your work was, go back and fix it, and make sure that you're on the same page as everybody else. Again, as you're going through and doing your other work today, make sure you're looking for what your variables are, what your unknowns are that can help you set up your problem. Look for those math words that we've used in the past that we've seen, and those will help you really go a long way as you do that. So that's the lesson. Make sure you get those notes down in your Gembus notes. Use them as you're going through the problems, and hope you guys have a great day, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow.